Vila stood at the edge of the landing platform and watched the human ships come and go. Orbital Station 17 was loud and busy. Ships of all sizes moved through the docking bays. Traders shouted prices. Machines beeped and hummed. The air smelled like metal and fuel. She pulled her hood lower over her face. Her pale blue skin would draw attention here. Most beings on this station were human, and humans noticed things that were different. That was one of the first lessons her commander had taught her. Humans are curious, Commander Rin had said, before sending her on this mission. They ask questions. They watch. They remember. Do not give them anything to remember. Vila was a spy. She worked for the Silthian Intelligence Division, and her job was simple. Go to human space. Live among them. Watch them. Learn their weaknesses. Then report back. The Galactic Council was afraid of humans. They had good reason to be. Humans had appeared on the galactic stage only 200 years ago, but they had already spread across dozens of star systems. They built colonies on worlds that would kill any other species. They survived in conditions that made no sense. The Council called them Deathworlders, and the name was not meant as a compliment. Vela had studied the reports. She had seen the videos. She thought she understood what humans were. But standing here, surrounded by them, she was not so sure anymore. A human male walked past her. He was tall and broad, with dark hair and a scar on his chin. He carried a heavy metal crate on one shoulder like it weighed nothing. He did not look at her. He did not seem to notice her at all. Vila checked her datapad. She had found a job listing 3 days ago. A cargo transporter named Doyen needed a domestic worker for his ship. The pay was low, but the position was perfect. She would live on his ship, clean his quarters, prepare his food, and watch everything he did. She found the ship in Docking Bay 14. It was called the Quiet Wind, and it was smaller than she expected. The hull was scratched and dented. One of the engine covers was held together with metal tape. It looked like it had survived many hard journeys. Do-Yoon was waiting at the airlock. He was not what Vela had expected either. He was younger than she thought. Maybe 28 or 29 years old. He had short black hair and tired eyes. His clothes were simple and worn. He stood with his hands in his pockets and watched her approach. "You are the one who answered my job posting," he said. It was not a question. "Yes," Vela said. She kept her voice calm and polite. "I am Vela. I am looking for work." Doyan looked at her for a long moment. His eyes moved over her face, her hands, her posture. Vila felt like he was reading her somehow, but his expression did not change. "You are Silthian," he said. "Yes, long way from home. I prefer to travel," Vela said. It was a lie, but it was a simple lie. "Easy to remember," Do-Hyun shrugged. "Fine with me. Come inside. I will show you around." The inside of the ship was just as worn as the outside. The corridors were narrow. The lights flickered sometimes. The air was warm and thick. Vila felt her skin prickle with discomfort, but she said nothing. Doyan showed her the main areas. The cockpit, where he spent most of his time. The cargo hold, which was half full of sealed containers. The small kitchen, which he called the galley. The even smaller living quarters, where she would sleep in a room barely big enough for a bed. "It is not fancy," Doyan said. "But it works." Vila nodded. She had lived in worse conditions during her training. She could survive this. What she could not understand was how. Doyan survived it. The gravity on the ship was set to Earth standard. To Vela, it felt like invisible hands were pushing down on her shoulders at all times. Her legs ached after just 10 minutes of walking. But Doyan moved like the gravity was nothing. He walked quickly, climbed ladders without effort, and lifted heavy objects with one hand. The temperature was another problem. Humans liked their environment warm. To Vila, the ship felt like a furnace. She wanted to ask him to lower the temperature, but she knew that would draw attention. So she suffered in silence. That first night, Doyan made dinner for both of them. He cooked some kind of noodle dish with vegetables and spices. The smell was strong and strange. Vela ate a small portion to be polite, and her stomach immediately protested. "Not hungry?" Doyan asked. I ate earlier, Vila lied. After dinner, Doyan poured himself a cup of dark liquid from a machine in the galley. The smell was bitter and strong. What is that? Vela asked. Coffee, Doyan said. He took a long drink. Keeps me awake. Vela watched him drink the entire cup. She knew what coffee was from her research. It was a stimulant, almost a mild poison by Silthian standards. Most species avoided it. Humans consumed it every day, sometimes multiple times a day. She added this to her mental notes. Humans poison themselves for energy. They see this as normal. Later that night, Bella sat alone in her small room and typed her first report to Commander Rin. She described the ship, the conditions, and her initial observations of Dojan. She wrote about the gravity, the heat, the strange food, and the coffee. At the end of her report, she added a personal note. The subject appears unaware he is surviving environmental extremes. He does not seem to know that his living conditions would be fatal to most other species. He treats it all as normal. I am beginning to understand why the Council is concerned. She sent the report and lay down on her bed. The mattress was too hard. The blanket was too rough. The air was too warm. She stared at the ceiling and listened to the hum of the ship's engines, somewhere on the other side of the wall. Doyan was probably drinking more coffee and working on something. He did not seem to sleep much. She had noticed that already. Vela closed her eyes and tried to rest. Her mission had just begun. She already felt like she had stepped into a world she did not understand. The humans called themselves survivors. They called their homeworld a death planet. They called themselves weak compared to other species. With no claws, no armor, no venom, but lying there in the dark, listening to the ship creak and groan around her. Vila wondered if they were lying about that last part. She had been trained to find weaknesses. She was good at her job. But as she drifted into an uneasy sleep, she could not shake the feeling that she was the one who was weak here. The human did not even know he was being watched. He did not know she was a spy. He did not know anything about her true purpose. And somehow, that made him more frightening, not less. 3 weeks passed on the quiet wind. Vela fell into a routine. She woke early, cleaned the common areas, organized the cargo manifests, and prepared meals that Doyan ate without complaint. She watched him constantly, writing mental notes that she would later send to Commander Rin. Every day brought new surprises. Every day, she found something else about humans that made no sense. Doyan worked hard. That was the first thing she truly understood about him. He woke before the artificial dawn cycle and worked until long after the artificial night began. He fixed broken systems, checked cargo seals, plotted navigation routes, and handled communications with clients. He did all of this alone, without rest, without complaint. One morning, Vila heard a loud bang from the engine room. She rushed to investigate and found Doyan kneeling beside an open panel. Smoke rose from the machinery inside. A power conduit had ruptured. Sparks were flying everywhere. Doyan reached into the panel with his bare hands. Vela watched in horror as he grabbed the damaged conduit and pulled it free. The metal was hot. She could see it burning his skin. But he did not stop. He worked quickly, disconnecting wires and replacing parts, until the sparks stopped and the smoke cleared. When he pulled his hands out, his palms were red and blistered. He looked at them for a moment, then shook his head. Stupid thing, he muttered. He was talking about the conduit, not his hands. You were injured, Vela said. Her voice came out higher than she intended. Doyan looked at her. It is just a burn. I have had worse. He walked to the medical cabinet and pulled out a tube of healing cream. He spread it on his palms carelessly, wrapped them in bandages that were already coming loose. Dawn went back to work. Bella stood frozen in place. On her homeworld, an injury like that would require professional medical care. The person would be excused from work for at least a week. There would be counseling to deal with the trauma of pain. Doyan returned to his duties in less than 5 minutes. She added this to her report that night. Humans feel pain, but they do not let it stop them. They treat serious injuries like minor problems. This is either bravery or madness. I cannot tell which. The days continued. Vila learned more. She learned that Doyan ate strange foods at strange times. Sometimes he would forget to eat for an entire day, then consume a massive meal at midnight. His body seemed to accept this chaos without protest. She learned that he could function on very little sleep, 4 hours, sometimes 3. He would nap in short bursts when he had time, then wake up and continue working like he had rested for a full night. She learned that he talked to himself. When he thought he was alone, he would mutter curses at broken equipment, have one-sided conversations with the ship, and sometimes laugh at jokes that only he understood. It was strange behavior, but it seemed to keep him calm. But the thing that confused Vila most happened late one night. She was walking to the galley for water when she heard a sound from Do-Yoon's quarters. It was a human sound, raw and terrible. A scream. Vila's training took over. She moved quickly and quietly to his door. Her mind raced with possibilities. An intruder? An injury? Some kind of attack? She opened the door and found nothing. No enemy, no blood. Just Do-Yoon sitting upright in his bed, breathing hard. His face was pale and wet with sweat. His hands were shaking. He looked at her, and for a moment, she saw something in his eyes that she did not recognize. Fear. Deep old fear. "I am sorry," he said. His voice was rough. "Bad dream." Vela did not understand. "A dream made you scream?" Do-Yoon ran a hand through his hair. "Yes. It happens sometimes. Old memories." He paused, then forced a small smile. "I did not mean to wake you." "Go back to sleep." Vela hesitated. She had read about human dreams. Her people did not dream the way humans did. Scythians processed their memories differently in a calm and ordered way. But humans relived their experiences in their sleep. Sometimes those experiences were painful. "Do you need medical assistance?" she asked. Do-Yoon laughed softly. It was not a happy sound. "There is no medicine for this. Just time. And sometimes not even that." He lay back down and turned away from her. The conversation was over. Vela returned to her room, but she did not sleep. She sat on her bed and thought about what she had seen. Do-Yoon was strong. She had watched him work through pain, exhaustion, and conditions that would break most beings. But now she knew that his body was not the only thing carrying weight. His mind carried weight too. Old wounds that did not heal. Memories that attacked him in his sleep. And yet, he would wake up tomorrow and continue living. He would drink his coffee, fix his ship, and deliver his cargo. He would smile at her and ask if she needed anything. He would act like nothing was wrong. Her next report to Commander Rin was longer than usual. "I have made a new observation," she wrote. "Humans do not break easily. I thought their strength was physical. I was wrong. Their true strength is psychological. They carry pain inside them like cargo, heavy and constant. But they do not let it stop them. They keep moving forward no matter what. This may be more dangerous than we thought. A species that cannot be broken by trauma is a species that cannot be defeated by normal means. The Council should be very concerned." She sent the report and waited for a response. None came that night. Vila lay in the darkness and listened to the ship. Everything was quiet now. Do-Yoon was probably awake, staring at his ceiling, fighting his own mind. She thought about her mission. Find their weaknesses. That was what she was supposed to do. But what if they did not have any? What if the weakness she was looking for did not exist? The thought scared her more than anything else on this ship. She had trained for years. She had studied reports and watched videos. She had prepared for every possibility, but she had not prepared for this. She had not prepared to admire them. Vila pushed the thought away. It was dangerous thinking. She was a spy. She had a job to do. Her feelings did not matter, but as the ship hummed around her, carrying her deeper into human space, she could not shake the feeling that her mission was already failing. Not because she could not find information, because the information she was finding was not what anyone wanted to hear. The attack came without warning. Vila was in the galley, preparing the morning meal when the ship shook violently She grabbed the counter to stop herself from falling. Alarms screamed to life. Red lights flashed in the corridors. Do-yoon's voice came over the intercom. "We have company. Stay hidden." Vila's heart pounded. She moved quickly, finding a storage closet near the galley. She squeezed inside and pulled the door almost closed, leaving a small gap to see through the gap. She watched the chaos unfold. The quiet wind shook again as something attached to the hull. A loud cutting sound filled the air. Someone was burning through the airlock. Someone was boarding the ship. Vila recognized the sound of Kralith boarding tools. The Kralith were pirates, insectoid creatures with hard shells and sharp limbs. They were known throughout the galaxy for their brutality. They did not take prisoners. They took cargo, and they killed anyone in their way. She expected Do-yeon to run. She expected him to hide, to call for help, to surrender. That was what any sensible being would do when facing Kralith. Raiders Do-yeon did none of those things. She heard his footsteps moving through the ship, not running away, moving toward the breach. The airlock burst open. 3 Kralith came through, their black shells gleaming under the emergency lights. They clicked and hissed at each other in their own language. Their weapons were raised, ready to kill. Do-yeon was waiting for them. Vela watched through the gap in the door, unable to move, unable to look away. The first Kralith charged at Do-yeon with a blade. Do-yeon stepped aside at the last moment and grabbed the creature's arm. He twisted and there was a terrible cracking sound. The Kralith screamed and dropped its weapon. Do-yeon picked up the blade and drove it into the creature's throat. The second Kralith raised its gun. Do-yeon moved faster than Vela thought possible. He grabbed a loose panel from the wall and threw it like a disc. It hit the Kralith's hand, knocking the gun away. Before the creature could react, Do-yeon was on top of it. Vela had seen violence before. Her training had included combat simulations, but she had never seen anything like this. Do-yeon fought like an animal. No, that was not right. Animals fought on instinct. Do-yeon fought with calculation. Every movement had a purpose. Every strike was meant to disable or kill. He used the environment against his enemies. He vented atmosphere in one corridor, sucking a Kralith into the vacuum before sealing the door again. He overloaded a power junction, sending sparks and flames into the face of another. He turned the ship itself into a weapon. The third Kralith tried to flee back to its boarding craft. Do-yeon caught it at the airlock. The fight lasted less than 10 seconds. When it was over, the Kralith was dead, and Do-yeon was covered in green blood that was not his own. He stood there for a moment, breathing hard. His clothes were torn. His face was scratched. Blood dripped from a wound on his arm. Then he walked calmly to the cockpit and set a new course. Vela stayed in her hiding spot, too shocked to move. Her legs were shaking. Her hands would not stop trembling. She had just watched a single human kill 3 Kralith raiders with almost no weapons. It should have been impossible, but it had happened. She had seen it with her own eyes. After what felt like hours, she forced herself to leave the closet. She walked slowly through the ship, stepping over bodies that Do-yeon had not yet cleaned up. The smell of blood and burnt metal filled the air. She found him in the galley, wrapping a bandage around his arm. His movements were slow and tired. The energy from the fight had left him. He looked up when she entered. "Are you hurt?" Vela shook her head. She could not find words. Do-yeon nodded. "Good help will take too long to arrive out here. I had to handle it myself." Handle it himself. Like killing 3 deadly pirates was just another task on his list. Vela sat down across from him. Her legs would not hold her anymore. "How?" she asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. "How did you do that?" Do-yeon finished wrapping his arm. He looked at her with those tired eyes. "I used to be a soldier. Before the first became a cargo hauler. Old habits. Old habits." He called combat training that could defeat Kralith raiders in close quarters an old habit. Vela thought about her reports. She thought about everything she had written to Commander Rin. She had described human resilience, their strange biology, their psychological strength. But she had not written about this. She had not written about what humans could do when they decided to fight. "You could have called for help," she said. Doyon shrugged. "Help was too far. So I handled it." He stood up and started cleaning the blood from his hands. The conversation was over for him. He had moved on. There was work to do. Vila sat alone in the galley for a long time after he left. She thought about her mission. She thought about the Galactic Council and their fear of humans. She thought about Commander Rin waiting for her reports. For the first time since arriving, she did not send a report that night. She did not know what to write. Everything she had learned felt incomplete now. She had come here to find weaknesses. Instead, she had found a species that turned their weaknesses into weapons. Humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy. They did not have natural armor or claws. They could not see in the dark like some species. They could not survive in vacuum without protection, but they did not need any of those things. Because when a human decided to fight, they became something else entirely. Something that did not give up. Something that did not stop. Something that used every tool available, including their own pain and fear. To destroy their enemies, Vela had watched Doyon take wounds that would have stopped her. She had watched him keep fighting anyway, driven by something she could not name. The Kralith were dead. The human was alive. And Vela finally understood why the Council was afraid. Not because humans were strong, because humans did not know how to lose. The quiet. Wind limped into port 3 days later. The damage from the Kralith attack was worse than Doyon had admitted. Half the systems were running on backup power. The hull had stress fractures in 2 places. The ship needed serious repairs before it could fly again. Doyon called his sister. Somi arrived the next morning on a shuttle from the nearby research colony where she worked. She was younger than Doyon, with long black hair and bright, curious eyes. She worked as a xenobiologist, studying alien species. Vila felt uncomfortable the moment they met. Somi was friendly, too friendly. She smiled at Vela, asked about her homeworld, and offered to share meals together. But behind the kindness, Vila sensed something else. Observation, analysis. The same things Vila herself did when studying humans. The days passed slowly as the ship underwent repairs. Doyon spent most of his time working with the station mechanics. Vila helped where she could, but there was little for her to do. So she found herself spending time with Somi instead. They talked about many things. Somi was genuinely interested in Sylthian culture, asking questions about food, music, and social customs. Vela answered carefully, giving information that was true, but not revealing. She was still a spy, after all. But Somi was smart, smarter than Vila had expected. On the 4th day, Somi found Vila alone in the galley. She sat down across from her with 2 cups of tea. The tea was mild, something Vela could actually drink without stomach problems. "Can I ask you something?" Somi said. Vila nodded. Somi tilted her head. Her eyes were sharp now, the friendly mask slipping slightly. "Why are you really here?" Vila's heart stopped for a moment. "I do not understand the question. I think you do." Somi took a slow sip of her tea. "I study alien species for a living. I notice patterns, behaviors, little things that do not match." Vila said nothing. Her training told her to deny everything. "Stay calm. Do not react." Dona continued. "Your speech patterns are too formal. You use grammar that Sylthians only use in official settings. When you eat, you watch us more than you eat. You observe everything, but you never participate. You ask questions that seem innocent, but they are always about human behavior, human biology, human psychology." She set down her tea. "You are not just a maid, are you?" Vila considered her options. She could lie. She could deflect. She could make excuses and hope that Somi would accept them. But looking into those sharp human eyes, she knew none of those things would work. Somi had already made up her mind. She was not asking a question. She was confirming what she already knew. So Vela told the truth. "No," she said quietly. "I am not just a maid." She explained everything. The Galactic Council. the fear of humans, her mission to observe and report. She did not hold back. After everything that had happened, after the weeks of living on this ship, the lies felt heavier than the truth. When she finished, Somi was quiet for a long moment. Vela waited for anger. She waited for accusations, for threats, for the conversation she had dreaded since the beginning. Instead, Somi laughed. It was a soft sound, not mocking, but genuinely amused. "You are not the first spy we have caught," she said. "You probably will not be the last. But you are the first one who looked genuinely confused by us." Vela blinked. "You are not angry? Why would I be angry?" Somi shrugged. "You were doing your job. And honestly, if our positions were reversed, we would probably do the same thing. Humans are curious too. We like to understand things that are different." She leaned forward. "But I want to know something. After all these weeks, after everything you have seen, what do you actually think of us?" Vela did not answer right away. The question was harder than it seemed. "I do not know," she admitted. "I came here expecting to find monsters. The reports called you Deathworlders. They said you were dangerous, aggressive, unpredictable. I expected to find weaknesses that would help the Council defend against you." She paused. "But that is not what I found. I found someone who drinks poison every morning and calls it coffee. I found someone who burns his hands and keeps working. I found someone who screams in his sleep but wakes up and smiles. I found someone who killed 3 pirates with his bare hands and then asked if I was okay." Somi nodded slowly. "And what does that tell you?" "It tells me that the Council is right to be afraid," Vela said. "But not for the reasons they think." That evening, Somi told Doyan the truth. Vela waited in her small room, expecting guards to arrive, expecting to be arrested and sent back to Scythian space in chains instead. Doyan came to her door alone. He knocked softly and waited for her to open it. When she did, he stood there with his hands in his pockets, looking at her with those same tired eyes she had studied for weeks. "Somi told me," he said. "I know." "Oh." Vela's voice was steady, but her hearts were beating fast. Scythians had 2 hearts, and right now, both of them were pounding. Doyan was quiet for a moment. Then he asked a question she did not expect. "Do you want to leave?" Vela stared at him. "What? Do you want to leave?" He repeated. "Your mission is over. Your cover is blown. If you want to go back to your people, I will not stop you." The question confused her more than anything else that had happened. On her homeworld, a spy who failed their mission would face serious consequences. Memory alteration, reassignment, sometimes worse. There was no choice involved. Duty was absolute, but Doyan was offering her something different. He was offering her the chance to decide for herself. "I do not know," she said honestly. "I do not know what I want." Doyan nodded like that answer made perfect sense. "Then stay. Figure it out. No pressure." He turned and walked away, leaving her alone with her thoughts. Vela stood in the doorway for a long time. She thought about her mission. She thought about Commander Rin, waiting for her reports. She thought about the Galactic Council and their fear. And she thought about a human who had every reason to hate her, but instead asked if she wanted to leave. For the first time in her life, Vela did not know what to do, and somehow, that felt more terrifying than anything else. The Scythian shuttle arrived 1 week later. Vela saw it coming on the station's tracking systems long before it docked. The ship was small and fast, painted in the dark colors of the Intelligence Division. She recognized the design. It was an extraction vessel, the kind used to retrieve agents whose missions had ended. Commander Rin had sent someone to bring her home. She should have felt relieved. Her mission was compromised. Her cover was blown. Going home was the logical choice. It was the safe choice. It was what she had been trained to do. But standing in the corridor of the quiet wind, watching the shuttle approach through a window, Vela felt something she had not expected. She did not want to go. The realization shocked her. Her entire life had been built around duty. Follow orders. Complete the mission. Serve the collective. Personal desires were secondary, almost meaningless compared to the greater purpose. But here, on this battered human ship, surrounded by beings who should have been her enemies. She had found something different. She had found people who asked what she wanted, people who gave her choices, people who treated her like she mattered as an individual, not just as a tool. It was confusing. It was terrifying. And it was wonderful. The shuttle docked at the station 2 hours later. 3 Silthian officers stepped onto the platform, their uniforms crisp and their expressions cold. Vila recognized 2 of them from her training days. The third was a stranger, but his posture marked him as the leader. They did not waste time with greetings. "Agent Vela," the leader said, "you have been recalled. Your mission has been classified as compromised. You will return with us immediately for debriefing." Debriefing. Vila knew what that word meant. It meant questions. It meant memory scans. It meant having her experiences pulled apart and examined by people who would never understand what she had seen, and if they decided she had become sympathetic to humans. It meant much worse. She opened her mouth to agree, to follow orders like she always had, to be a good agent and accept her fate. Then she heard footsteps behind her. Doyon walked past her and stopped between Vela and the Silthian officers. He stood with his hands at his sides, his posture relaxed but firm. He did not look angry. He did not look afraid. He looked like someone who had made a decision and would not be moved. "She has not asked to leave," he said. His voice was calm but clear. "Until she does, she stays." The lead officer stared at him. "You have no authority here, human? This is a Silthian matter. The agent belongs to us." Doyon did not move. "She is not cargo. She is not property. She is a person. And people make their own choices." The officer's expression twisted with something like disgust. "You do not understand our ways. In Silthian culture, duty supersedes personal desire. She has obligations to fulfill." "I understand just fine," Doyon said. "You want to take her whether she wants to go or not? And I am telling you, that is not going to happen." One of the other officers stepped forward, his hand moving toward his weapon. "You would threaten us? Over a spy who was sent to study your weaknesses?" Somi appeared beside her brother. She crossed her arms and looked at the officers with the same sharp eyes that had seen through Vila's cover. "She told us the truth," Somi said. "She could have kept lying. She chose not to. That matters." The lead officer looked between the 2 humans, calculating. Vela could see him weighing his options. 3 Silthian officers against 2 humans in a public station. The odds seemed good on paper. But after watching Dojon fight the Kralith, Vila knew better than to trust those odds. The officer seemed to reach the same conclusion. He turned back to Vila. "Agent, this is your last chance. Come with us now, or you will be classified as a defector. There will be no coming back." Vila looked at him. She looked at the shuttle behind him, at the path back to everything she had known: safety, duty, order, a life without questions, without choices, without the terrifying freedom that humans seem to embrace. Then she looked at Doyon and Somi. They were watching her. But they were not pressuring her. They were waiting, giving her space, letting her decide. That was the difference. That was what mattered. Vela stepped forward, not toward the shuttle, toward the humans. "I will stay," she said. Her voice was quiet but steady. "For now." The lead officer's face went cold. "You are making a mistake. When the council learns of this, there will be consequences."
Ow.
Doyon shrugged. "Let them come. We will be here." The officers had no response to that. They stood there for a moment longer, then turned and walked back to their shuttle. The door sealed behind them. Minutes later, the vessel detached from the station and disappeared into the stars. Vela watched it go. She felt strange, hollow and full at the same time. She had just given up everything she knew for something she did not fully understand. Somi touched her arm gently. "Are you okay?" "I do not know," Vela admitted. "I have never done anything like this before." Doyon stood beside her, looking out at the empty space where the shuttle had been. "First time is always the hardest," he said. "It gets easier." Vila did not know if she believed him, but she wanted to. That night, She sat alone in her small room on the quiet wind and wrote one final report. Not to Commander Rin, not to the Intelligence Division. She sent it to the Galactic Archive, where records were kept for future generations. It would be stored there forever, available to anyone who wanted to read it. She wrote about her mission. She wrote about what she had expected to find and what she had actually found. She wrote about Doyen's burned hands and nightmare screams. She wrote about the pirates and the fight that should have been impossible. She wrote about Sami's sharp questions and kind tea, and at the end, she wrote the truth. I was sent to study humanity's weaknesses. I found none that matter. Their bodies are fragile compared to many species. Their lifespans are short. They require specific conditions to survive. By all measures, they should be easy to defeat. But they are not, because their true power lies not in their bodies, but in their minds. In their belief that every being deserves the right to choose their own path, they do not conquer through force alone. They conquer by offering freedom. And that is something no army can fight. The Council asked me to find out why humans are dangerous. The answer is simple. They are dangerous because they make you want to be like them. They are dangerous because once you have tasted freedom, you can never go back to chains. I was caught off guard. I expected enemies and found something else entirely. I found people who asked what I wanted instead of telling me what I should do. And I am grateful. She sent the report and closed her datapad. The ship hummed around her, familiar now instead of strange. Through the wall, she could hear Doyon and Somi talking quietly, their voices warm and calm. Vela lay down on her bed. The mattress was still too hard. The blanket was still too rough. The air was still too warm, but for the first time since she arrived, it felt like home.